Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Still with you on today's edition of Cairo Local Time. And today we have a very interesting topic in discussion in our studio. We're delighted to be joined by our guest this afternoon, Mr. Henery Ayoub, the Egyptologist, who is joining us in the studio to tell us about the Holy Family's journey throughout Egypt and details related to this very interesting and historical journey. Really, Mr. Henery Ayoub, soon to be doctor. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir. Right. So the Holy Family passed 3 locations in northern Sinai, 18 locations in the Nile Valley and Delta. They visited Wadi Natrun in the western desert, Jabal al-Tir in the eastern desert, and crossed the River Nile's course 4 times. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So what made you think of documenting, the Holy Family's journey in Egypt?
First of all, let me tell you something. The Holy Family journey, it was a very historical moment for Egypt and the history of Egypt in general. Before the coming of Jesus Christ to Egypt, there was some prophecies was written about him in the Old Testament. That's the first documents. The first prophecy was written by a prophet called Isaiah in chapter 19, and I'm going to read it actually. The burden against Egypt, behold, the Lord rides on a soft cloud and will come into Egypt. The idol of Egypt will totter at his presence, and the heart of Egypt will melt in its midst. So this was written roughly about 700 years ago, before the coming of Jesus to Egypt. And then we have another chapter or another verse in the same book, talking about Jesus, says, in that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, a pillar to the Lord at its borders. So an altar means a church, and literally, or if you look at the geography of Egypt, this altar, it's the monastery. Where is the monastery of Dar al-Muharrak right now? The monastery of Muharrak in Asyut. Then we have another prophet called Hosea, said, when the Lord out of Egypt I called my son. Out of Egypt I called my son. This is actually in the Old Testament. And then in the book of Matthew, chapter 2, the Lord of the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said to him, flee to Egypt quickly, and take the child and his mother, because Herod is seeking for his killing, and stay there until I bring you a word. This might fulfill what was written in the Old Testament in the book of Hosea, out of Egypt I called my son. This is actually very important historical, documents written in the Old Testament and in the New Testament about Jesus Christ.
Yes, so let's talk a bit about the Holy Family's travels around Egypt, especially also from a touristic point of view, because now Egypt wants to revive this as an official program where people can come and visit all the holy sites that were visited or lived in by the Holy Family throughout their about a 3-year stay inside
3 years and 11 months.
Yeah, 3 year, 11 months. So let's talk a bit about some of these sites and the progress that have been done so far in revamping, because some of these sites are in very modest areas in Upper Egypt, for example, not a lot of availability of accommodation or transport, etc., which has really changed now since it's becoming an official program that you can visit all these sites. So tell us a bit about the progress in this regard.
Yeah, first of all, let me explain briefly about the itinerary of the Holy Family. First of all, they came from Palestine, Bethlehem to Sinai. They actually passed by a lot of places like Al-Arish, Rafah, Al-Farama, and then they came down into the delta, the eastern delta. The first place they actually stayed there for some time, a very short time, Tal Basta in Zagazig. And then from Tal Basta they went down to a place called Mustarad, which is very well known. There's a church right now of Virgin Mary. From Mustarad they went up to Belbis, and then from Belbis to a place called Sakha in the eastern delta. And then from Sakha they went to Natrun Valley. There's four beautiful monasteries there from the 4th century. From the Natrun Valley to Cairo. They went to Mataria, where is a beautiful tree right now, a very, very old tree in Mataria, and then Zatoun as well nearby. And then from there they went to Babylon, the area of Babylon, and you might wonder why they spot a little bit in Babylon, because there was a lot of Jews back then. So they speak the same language. And then there's a beautiful church there called San Sergio Church.
Yes,
and from there they went to Maadi, and from Maadi they went by the Nile, by sort of like a felucca boat. They went up to the south of Egypt. The last place they spotted there and stayed, Deir al-Muharrak, or the monastery of Muharrak. They stayed 6 months and 10 days. In fact, since His Holiness, the Pope of Vatican, Pope Francis, came a few years ago, and he really brought this program on the map of the tourism, our government took a wonderful and very serious steps to facilitate this kind of service. I mean, they bought a lot of infrastructures, good roads, very convenient roads, and then also they built new hotels in the sightseeing, which is so decent, very easy to use actually, and also some restaurants for snacks and some coffee shops, which is very important, because if I come from the States of America, I'm not coming here just to not to find any place to eat or to
so accommodation, new services, as well as better transport facilities now available. So this is quite a long trip. I mean, how many stops would it be if someone were to come and take part in this program visit?
In fact, the Holy Family in general, they spot or they stayed or they passed by, you can call it accurately, on 40 different cities.
Okay.
But it's not in every place we have a church. So we have like a major sightseeing in Egypt, for example. In the Delta, we can have one day to visit actually Sakha, a Church of Virgin Mary, and
actually we were seeing now pictures on the screen of footprint of baby Jesus.
Exactly, that's
Sakha.
exactly in a place called Sakha.
Yes.
That's why the word Sakha comes from a Coptic word Bicha Isos, which means the foot of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And then we have also, we can visit Old Cairo, which is very important.
Yes.
I mean,
it's a beautiful, beautiful location.
In fact, in Old Cairo, in Babylon, there is actually 10 churches.
Okay.
10 churches, not only or
it's actually a meeting point for the three religions, really, together in one spot.
The Mosque of Amr ibn al-As, the Synagogue of Ben Ezra, the churches. We have 10 churches. That's one of the major, sightseeing.
Yes,
and
one of the churches has a well
that's exactly
and a place where they hid as well.
Wherever they go, we have actually a water well, because it's very important, because without water there is no life. So that's one of the major, place for them, and also. We can also go to, the people visit actually the south of Egypt, especially Minya, Jabal al-Tair, and then we have the monastery of Muharrak. So we can have like about, let me say, 3-4 days, people can actually visit all the places which they have attractions.
Yes, of course, it's not just about visiting the city. It's what do you see, for example, if you go to these attractions? There's a church. And there's a story, basically. This is where they hid, this is where they stayed, this is where they did this. What are some of the most common stories or the most popular locations amongst the locations that you mentioned?
Well, first of all, they left a lot of monuments behind them. As you mentioned a few minutes ago, that if you go to Sakha, for example, you're going to see the footprint of Jesus Christ on the stone, which is very, very important. It means Jesus was here when he was a baby. Also, when we tell the people that, when we go to Old Cairo, and we tell the people that Jesus was walking here one day, and he drank from this water, oh wow, this is like a second Jerusalem. The most interesting part about this, the Holy Family in Asyut, in Deir al-Muharrak, or the monastery of Muharrak, the church there, it's the smallest church ever in the whole country, by the way, because Joseph the carpenter, he was a carpenter, who came with the Holy Family. The Holy Family, by the way, the members were 5 people, not only 3. And then he built a small house. In the same spot of this house, they built an altar, a church. A few years ago, I think, about I think the last century, the abbot of the church there, he wanted to enlarge this altar. He wanted to destroy this altar to build a cathedral, and he couldn't. He couldn't. When the story among the monks there, they said when he took the axe to destroy the altar, his hand couldn't move anymore. That's very, very interesting stories.
Yes.
Plus, actually, we have a lot of icons in the art telling them the story.
Yes, yes. The icons are also beautiful, and they're really historic. We're talking
Yes,
about
they are.
how many years back?
They are.
Some of these icons are, we're talking about how many years?
Yeah, unfortunately, the icons in Egypt not before the 14th, 15th century, because most of the icons which we have right now from the 18th, 19th century. There were actually 3 painters, very famous painters. Actually, they did most of the icons. A man, his name Ibrahim al-Nasikh, Muhammad al-Armali, and Anastasia Rumi. So most of the icons which we have in our churches right now, dating back to the 18th and the 19th century. But still, we have a very few numbers of icons. You might find them in the old monasteries from 6th, 7th century.
So indeed, a lot of places to visit when people come to really visit the Holy Family's footprints around Egypt, the places they've passed through, the places they've stayed, really a beautiful, rich cultural and historic visit, which will very soon be open for lots of people from all over the world to come. Lots of tourists as well. What countries, what tourists from which countries are keen to come for this program?
Well, by myself, I was giving a lot of talks in America, and when you explain to them that the Holy Family came to Egypt, especially in the churches, among the people who go to the churches, they are eager to come to Egypt.
And Italians as well.
Italians, they are very keen.
Filipinos
I mean, but especially in America, actually, because a lot of people, they don't know that the Holy Family come to Egypt. They don't know the story. So when you speak to them, a lot of people will come. And I remember one day I was explaining in the hanging church, and I talk about the Holy Family journey to Egypt. One of the clients was crying. She said, I don't know this, and I feel God nearby me in this church. So it's a very interesting program. Yeah,
absolutely. Right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Mr. Henery Ayoub, the Egyptologist. Thank you so much for coming in and for your insight. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up today's edition of Cairo Local Time. We do hope you have enjoyed it. You were in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.